The honeymoon ends. Not with a dramatic climax or a sudden, tragic flaw, but with a quiet, creeping realization that settles like dust in the corners of your heart. The person you fell for is not who you thought they were. They never were. You were in love not with a complex, breathing human being, but with a mirage, a perfect psychological projection woven from your deepest unmet needs, your most fervent spiritual yearnings, and your most vibrant, unlived dreams. We all chase this mirage. We mistake the fierce, blinding, intoxicating light of projection for the gentle, steady, and demanding warmth of genuine connection. This initial phase of love, the infatuation, the euphoria, the absolute certainty, is a magnificent, necessary, and utterly powerful illusion. But it is an illusion nonetheless. And the profound insight of Carl Jung tells us something both terrifying and ultimately liberating. Real love can only begin when this illusion dies. This is the point of alchemical transformation, the pivotal moment where the psyche, under the relentless, abrasive pressure of reality, cracks wide open. You realize the person standing across from you is not your anima or animus made manifest, not your savior, your rescuer, or your perfect complement, but a complex, flawed, fiercely independent, and ultimately separate individual. They carry their own ancient family wounds, their own personal darkness, and their own stubborn, frustrating autonomy. And in that shattering of the ideal, in that profound experience of disappointment, lies the seed of true, mature relationship. The death of the fantasy is the birth of the truth. Tonight, we step inside the Inner Citadel to meticulously explore Carl Jung's most profound, challenging, and often painful insights on human connection. We will journey past the superficial glamour of romantic fantasy and into the gritty, purifying crucible of authentic love. We will ask, what exactly is this illusion we are forced to kill? Why is it so essential for the initiation of love? And most importantly, what kind of terrifying, yet beautiful, self-knowledge is demanded of us when we finally decide to stop loving a ghost and start loving the complicated, frustrating, magnificent human being standing right in front of us? This is where the true work and the real wonder begins. The psychology of projection. Carl Jung, the great Swiss explorer of the psyche, provided a revolutionary and unromantic map for the landscape of human relationships, a map that utterly disregards the superficial tropes of a fairy tale ending. For Jung, the initial, irresistible gravitational pull of romance is not a matter of destiny or magic, but a massive, consuming, and often violent unconscious psychological operation. It is an energetic, psychic transfer, a core process he identifies simply as projection. Projection is the deeply human, universal mechanism by which we unknowingly take vast, unintegrated aspects of our own inner world, qualities we have not yet acknowledged, powerful desires we have repressed, potentials we have failed to realize, and externalize them, affixing them onto an external person. This person, the beloved, becomes the blank canvas upon which we paint the picture of our own unlived life. The most potent and recognizable form of this in the realm of romance involves the archetypal structures of the Anima and Animus. The Anima is the unconscious, feeling, relational, and feminine aspect in the man's psyche. The Animus is the unconscious, structuring, reasoning, and masculine aspect in the woman's psyche. These are not merely tied to gender roles, but are powerful, primordial systems of spirit, feeling, and intuition that reside, often unacknowledged, in the deeper reaches of the shadow. When we encounter a person who, through some uncanny alignment of their personality, seems to perfectly embody these powerful, missing pieces of our soul, the attraction is instant, overwhelming, and feels like absolute fate. The beloved, in that moment, becomes the shimmering vessel for our own spiritual completeness. The grand illusion is born. We are not seeing them in their totality. We are seeing a magnificent reflection of the perfect partner residing, fully formed, in our own deep unconscious. This is why the person who attracts us the most is so often the one who holds the key to our own deepest psychological integration. They carry the gold, the vital energy we failed to mine and integrate in ourselves. Jung understood that this intense, projected love is, in a paradoxical sense, an evolutionary necessity. It is the psyche's brilliant, if occasionally brutal, mechanism for forcing us into a state of growth. The blinding force of the illusion provides the initial, massive energy needed to overcome our natural reticence, our inherent fear of intimacy, and our self-protective isolation, thereby compelling us to enter the vulnerable, messy, and deeply demanding contract of a long-term relationship. The projection is a powerful scaffolding erected by the unconscious to begin the building of a bond. It grants us permission to be intimate. But scaffolding, by its intrinsic nature, must eventually be dismantled and removed. The inevitable crisis point arrives, and it is guaranteed to arrive, when the unrelenting pressure of reality begins to press against the fragile structure of the illusion. The beloved, being a fully autonomous human being and not an archetypal image, inevitably, universally fails to live up to the projected perfection. They leave the socks on the floor, they display an irritating habit, they show a crippling vulnerability, or they exhibit a lack of perfect empathy where you expected absolute understanding. This failure to align with the imago, the internal, idealized image, causes devastating psychic friction. The projection begins its agonizing collapse. The psychic energy must now be forcibly withdrawn from the external object and re-assimilated, metabolized, and integrated into the self. This agonizing process of withdrawal, Jung argues, is universally experienced as disillusionment, profound disappointment, and often, an overwhelming, specific type of grief, the specific grief of losing the perfect partner who existed only in our minds. But this is not, crucially, the death of love, it is the true beginning. Because in the open, aching space created by the collapse of the illusion, the possibility of truly seeing, fully accepting, and profoundly loving the real, complicated person emerges. This transition from loving the projected image to loving the messy, actual self is the ultimate alchemical operation of mature, psychologically demanding, and enduring Jungian love. Section 1. The disillusionment as the necessary crucible. The death of the romantic illusion is often mistakenly and tragically identified as the death of the relationship itself. Yet, for Jung, this moment is the crucial crucible of transformation. The initial period of blissful infatuation is overwhelmingly characterized by an ecstatic merger, a powerful, temporary collapse of ego boundaries where the two individuals feel like they are one soul finally reunited. This state, however sweet and intoxicating, is ultimately and inherently narcissistic, because what we are fundamentally loving is an extension of ourselves, an echo chamber of our own desires. We are loving the harmony of our own projections perfectly reflecting back to us. The shattering of this merger, the moment the partner displays an otherness, a stubborn autonomy that violently resists our imago, is a deep, systemic shock. It is often registered in the psyche as a profound psychic wound. We find ourselves demanding, why did they do that? Why are they so fundamentally different from what I thought? This emotional interrogation marks the precise moment when the unconscious demands a terrifying and difficult act, the withdrawal of the projection. When we finally stop blaming the partner for failing to be our manufactured ideal, we are violently forced to look inward. The powerful qualities we projected onto them, the heroism, the perfect stability, the effortless creative passion, must now be recognized and integrated as our own unowned potential. The energy we spent idealizing them must be turned inward to build our own wholeness. This withdrawal of psychic energy is not a simple choice. It is a difficult act of genuine self-confrontation. The negative aspects of the projection also violently return home. The partner's flaws that now constantly infuriate us, their perceived weakness, their passive aggression, their irresponsibility, may actually be unacknowledged, repressed aspects of our own shadow. We unconsciously projected our own undesirable darkness onto them, allowing ourselves to feel perpetually good, superior, and justified. Now, the shadow comes home to roost. The experience of disillusionment is thus, fundamentally, a confrontation with the totality of the self. The relationship is no longer a soft cushion of romance, but a relentless mirror, reflecting not our perfection, but our own inescapable incompleteness. This painful process is precisely why so many relationships catastrophically fail at this critical juncture. It is overwhelmingly easier, more emotionally convenient, to flee from the pain of this necessary self-confrontation, to find a new, fresh vessel onto which we can cast a new, clean, sparkling projection, than it is to remain present and process the disillusionment. Jung would argue that what often appears as serial monogamy is simply a series of desperate attempts to relive the bliss of the illusion without having to do the hard, necessary work of individuation. The real, accurate measure of a relationship is not how well it survives the honeymoon's ease, but how well the two individuals successfully integrate the projections after the honeymoon's intensity is over. The suffering of disillusionment is therefore not a cruel cosmic joke. It is the necessary price of admission to true, profound self-awareness, and the only doorway to a love that is based not on fleeting, fragile fantasy, but on the enduring, complicated texture of reality. Section 2. Individuation and the autonomous other. The Jungian concept of individuation is not peripheral, but absolutely central to any deep understanding of real love. Individuation is the arduous, lifelong process of becoming a unified, whole, and utterly unique individual, distinct from the collective and fully aware of one's own conscious and unconscious contents. The death of the love illusion is, in essence, the relationship's forced individuation crisis. The individual journey and the relational journey become inextricably linked. When the psychological projection collapses and dissolves, the two people are suddenly faced with each other as two entirely separate, autonomous psychological systems. They are no longer two halves of a mythical, single soul, but two distinct, independent spheres of being attempting to responsibly interact. The challenge is to maintain the connection, to keep the fire lit, without the initial, powerful psychological glue of the projection. This monumental task requires a profound, almost spiritual respect for the partner's absolute otherness, a deep understanding that they are not, and will never be, here to fulfill your internal narrative, but to live the demanding, complex life of their own soul. Their purpose is internal, not relational. Jung defined a mature relationship not as a blissful fusion or an annihilation of boundaries, but as the meeting of two integrated wholes. In the phase of illusion, boundaries are porous, constantly blurred, often leading to a subtle or overt codependent dynamic where one partner takes inappropriate responsibility for the other's emotional life or existential fulfillment. After the illusion dies, firm, healthy ego boundaries must be established and rigorously defended. The individuals must learn the crucial skill of differentiation, to say unequivocally, "I am not you, and your feelings are not mine," while simultaneously committing, "I choose to be deeply and meaningfully with you." This dynamic creates a necessary and enduring tension in the relationship, the productive, life-giving tension between absolute intimacy and fierce autonomy. This realization of the autonomous other is, paradoxically, what allows for the emergence of genuine empathy. You can only truly empathize with someone, you can only truly feel with them, when you recognize that their internal experience is fundamentally, irrevocably not your own. As long as they remained a projection, you simply expected them to feel and act as you would, assuming a perfect synchronicity. Once they are accepted as an independent, sovereign entity, you must begin the difficult, rewarding, and respectful work of trying to understand their unique psychological history, their individual complexes, their specific vulnerabilities, and their core worldview. Love, in this mature phase, becomes an act of sustained, curious, and respectful inquiry rather than a foregone conclusion of shared understanding. This is where the depth of character, rather than the superficial thrill of fantasy, becomes the primary, enduring engine of the bond. To love the other's autonomy is to finally acknowledge and embrace their full, untamed, magnificent humanity. Section 3. The Shadow Contract and Conscious Conflict. The illusionary phase of love operates on a tacit, unconscious contract, a silent, mutually agreed-upon arrangement to overlook, deny, or actively suppress the mutual shadow. The shadow, in Jungian terms, is everything we deny, suppress, or push down into the unconscious because it is incompatible with the idealized image of our conscious self. Initially, the intense, blinding light of the projection entirely obscures the shadow of the partner. In fact, we unconsciously celebrate their darker, unintegrated shadow aspects as charming quirks, exciting edges, or passionate spontaneity, because they are fulfilling our own repressed, unacknowledged desires for, perhaps, recklessness, freedom, or emotional intensity. Once the illusion comprehensively breaks, the full, raw weight of the partner's, and our own, shadow is starkly revealed. This revelation leads directly and inevitably to conscious conflict. Jung viewed conflict not as a simple sign of relationship failure or incompatibility, but as a necessary, life-affirming dialogue with the shadow. Where the illusion demanded complete harmony, superficial compatibility, and an avoidance of all friction, real, conscious love bravely welcomes the creative, productive tension of opposing viewpoints. The conflict, when approached consciously and with psychological awareness, becomes the powerful vehicle for mutual growth and deeper understanding. The central challenge here is to completely avoid the tempting but destructive tendency to make the partner the sole repository for all the relationship's negative energy, a toxic phenomenon Jung termed the scapegoat mechanism. Instead of lashing out and yelling, "You are so irresponsible and chaotic," and thereby projecting one's own repressed fear of instability onto the partner, the mature, conscious response demands a painful self-inquiry. What part of my own repressed desire for chaos or freedom, or what part of my own terror of losing control, is being externalized and resisted in this specific dynamic? The argument ceases to be a battle with the partner and becomes, instead, a relentless mirror for one's own internal contradictions. This conscious, difficult engagement with conflict is the purifying alchemical fire that ultimately transmutes the base, deceptive metal of projection into the psychological gold of real relationship. Every argument, every deep disagreement that is successfully navigated, where both parties own their shadow material and their full, proportional contribution to the dynamic, fundamentally strengthens the relational bond. It provides irrefutable evidence that the relationship can withstand the intense friction of two whole, flawed people, and not just the smooth, easy surface of two complementary fantasies. The foundation of real love is therefore not absolute, superficial peace, but a robust, enduring capacity for productive disagreement, honest self-disclosure, and heartfelt mutual repair. It is a profound, conscious pact to wrestle honestly with each other's reality, rather than agreeing to live a comfortable, mutually beneficial lie. Section 4. The Transcendent Function and New Meaning. If the catastrophic death of the illusion is the initiating crisis, and the laborious withdrawal of projections is the conscious work, the eventual, profound reward is the activation of the transcendent function in the relational space. The transcendent function is Jung's specific term for the psychological process by which we integrate the conscious material with the unconscious material, the ego and the shadow, the anima and the animus, leading to the powerful, transformative emergence of a third thing, a new symbol, a new philosophical attitude, or a new meaning that profoundly transcends the two initial, opposing perspectives. In the essential context of love, the transcendent function is what is organically born from the conscious conflict, the enduring commitment, and the ultimate reconciliation of the two autonomous individuals. It is the sophisticated, unique culture of the relationship itself, the unique, shared history, the private, negotiated language, the emergent moral and ethical values, and the collective wisdom that is demonstrably greater than the sum of its two individual parts. This new meaning, this third thing, is the true, enduring product of the relationship, a living, breathing symbol of its own successful, ongoing individuation. The love that begins and endures after the illusion dies is a sober love. It utterly lacks the frantic, obsessive, all-consuming heat of initial infatuation, but it possesses a far more durable, stable, and enduring warmth. It is a love based on an unrelenting commitment to the whole, messy, unedited reality of the other person, including the specific parts that disappoint, frustrate, and constantly challenge our own ego. This sober love is not merely a passive, overwhelming feeling. It is an active, demanding act of will, a courageous choice made moment after moment, day after day, year after year, to see the reality, own the conflict, and still consciously choose to stay. Ultimately, the Jungian vision of love profoundly transforms the relationship from a desperate search for a missing half, a search for self-completion, into a shared, demanding journey of mutual self-discovery. The partner is no longer a tool for one's own self-completion, but a co-adventurer, a fellow pilgrim, and a sacred mirror who courageously helps you see the unvarnished truth of yourself and your shadow. The illusion gives way to a love that is fundamentally deeper, infinitely more compassionate, and profoundly more meaningful precisely because it is earned through suffering and conscious effort. It is a profound testament to the courage required to accept reality, both the flawed reality of the self and the challenging reality of the other. The initial fire of infatuation burned fast and bright, but the slow, persistent, smoldering coal of conscious love provides the reliable, life-sustaining heat that truly, enduringly lasts.